to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty podcast with Borg, Betz, and a baller.
Welcome in, you beautiful, beautiful people. It's Wednesday, June 24th here on the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty podcast. And you got Borg and Betz.
Sorry. That's it. You know, eventually there will be a time where corporate cares. Now is not that time. But Kyle, it is a beautiful day. June 24th. Can you think of a better day to talk Dynasty fantasy football? I personally cannot, and I can't imagine not being here for this show. So I'm excited. We're going to break it down today. A little bit of a different show. We don't normally do something like this. I'll let you break down what today's show is going to be, but I'm excited to talk some Dynasty today. I was thinking about this before the show started. I was like, man, I haven't really made a Dynasty trade in like a month. And I looked in the mirror. I was like, what is wrong with me? So hopefully today we can talk through some ideas of how to improve rosters and go out and make some moves.
So you had like the little bit of the itch, the withdrawals, the like, you know, the crackhead feeling.
I need, yes, I need the dopamine hit, Kyle. Come on.
It is just nice if you're listening to us right now, just to feel alive. It's okay to press pause and just fire off a trade. Just see what happens, you know? Even if it's like a little roulette with a draft pick. We do that in one of our leagues where there's somebody every single year in Dino Jr. that has traded their pick for somebody else just because they believe they will get a better pick.
I love that.
It's just the most like outward bravado move, just saying like, I think this is what your team's going to be, this is what my team's going to be, and it has backfired on them a lot. But sometimes it's just fun to fire off a trade. On this episode, we are going to be talking roster review. So how do you go about looking at your roster, identifying what season you're in? You know, like, hey, I'm a contender, I'm rebuilding, I don't know where I'm at. And then what are the moves that you should make? So we'll go through the process. Betz has blindly sent me one of his rosters in a league I'm not in, and he's given me no context. So we'll kind of walk through that team together as an example, and then we will review rosters that the Foot Clan has sent in. And I think it should be really, really good. No matter where you're at or which team, or if you're one of those people you're in 30 different leagues, you probably have a team that has some overlap, or you have questions about how to handle your roster. And I think that's when I started in the Ballers main Dynasty League, I became Jeremy's co-manager. And his biggest question is, I don't know where to go with this team. So I had to hold his hand. I had to put him on my back.
Classic Al.
And I just put us in the right direction. Now look at us, Puka and JSN. You know,
now who made those picks? You or was it Jeremy?
Who
turned the card in?
I picked up Puka.
Okay.
And then JSN was the pick because we didn't get Bijan. So you tell me.
Consolation prize.
You tell me who's the captain of this ship.
I mean, I would give you credit for that. Jeremy, the guy doesn't know ball. I mean, if we're being honest.
Oh my gosh.
Come on.
The guy that's editing this very podcast?
Yeah, he's listening right now.
Okay, well, that's fine. So we'll go through some of that. We'll do some roster reviews. It should be good. But in the spirit of roster reviews, I thought I would do this for us.
Reviewosaurus Rex.
We used to do this all the time on the main podcast. And if you've been a long time listener to the Fantasy Footballers, you understand the Reviewosaurus Rex drop, because Jason would get to read a review in the early days of the podcast. And I was like, you know what? We never use this drop. We never get to do it. So I think the Dynasty podcast is where I get to kind of bring those back. And we just get to read a review. If you're one of those people that this podcast has brought you some joy or some life, we never asked for any of those things, but we thought like, hey, this would be a good time in the middle of summer to read a review. So I'm going to let Betz kind of be the Jason.
Oh,
in
no.
this.
Pressure's on.
So I'm actually going to hit the drop again so you can get into the ultimate mode.
Okay.
And read this review, which is from Apple Podcasts. Let's do it again.
Reviewosaurus Rex.
This one comes in from Nick Dino on Apple Podcasts. Love the host of the show, Borg, Betz, and a baller. Borg's always willing to share good Dynasty data. Betz always good for a laugh and injury information. And can't wait for the next host. Some guy named Felix? How was that?
That's good. You did pretty well. You got the cadence correct.
This one comes in.
I mean, Jason's man of
I
many
used to
talents.
love that. That is like one of those that, like, you know, nobody really remembers those, but just hearing the drop made me think back to like that phase of my life when I found ballers and everything. Like, it's nostalgic. So I'm glad you did that, Kyle.
Yeah, you can actually go back and find the time that Brooks's review got read on the podcast, and then he became, a 10+ year employee. He's been with the company for a long time. So it's pretty cool. But if you want to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we'd really appreciate it. And we really like doing the show with you guys, for you guys. And this episode will definitely be Foot Clan centric. Last little thing I want to share before we get into our quick question, ultimatedraftkit.com. If you want our rankings, projections, Dynasty startup rankings, which we will be referring to on this episode, and like right in front of me at all times when I need to check a projection, I literally just go on the app, and I got to see this morning, like, how many targets do we have Alec Pierce projected for in the Ultimate Draft Kit? I got to see the average, and then I got to ask the question, like, man, almost 100 targets. Has anybody ever jumped from, being a 40 catch guy to seeing 100+ targets in a season and becoming a wide receiver one? So I did all the math for that. We'll talk about him later, but ultimatedraftkit.com if you want to see all of that. Our quick question is from GT Bulls 48, and it's a question about Jeremiyah Love. His question is, I took Jeremiyah Love at the 101 in my rookie draft, and now every fantasy person I hear is throwing shade on the Cardinals team and the crowded Cardinals backfield. What can we expect in year one and beyond for Jeremiyah Love?
So that is true. When you hear Cardinals discussion, generally the consensus opinion is this team will probably not win a lot of games. They're not projected to score a ton of actual points from a touchdown perspective. And so when I think about that, to me, that's a redraft idea, right? And in Dynasty, like, you want these guys to hit in year one. But if you know that that is the expectation going in because, well, they have a 4.5 win total, they got the hardest schedule in the league, they don't really have a quarterback, like, obviously you could see the ceiling being capped for this team and therefore for Jeremiyah Love. But if you know that in Dynasty, then your value of him shouldn't really change as long as he has a good to great rookie year. Now, last year we saw with Genty on a bad team, it was a frustrating season, but you were never like, Genty's the problem. Genty sucks. Like, it's over for Genty. Now, entering year two, like, he's in redraft, like, he's going in the exact same spot he was last year, basically, because you know what he can do as a player and you know how talented he is. And Jeremiyah Love, the question is not talent. It is just scheme and surrounding situation and play calling and all those sort of things that we should have question marks about. In redraft, I'm kind of lukewarm on Jeremiyah Love. In Dynasty, nobody should be worried at all about Jeremiyah Love, is my opinion, because when you think about we mentioned Felix in the review of Source Rex. The talent level that Jeremiyah Love is, I don't want people to forget about that. Obviously, gets the elite draft capital. And I went back to Jason's Felix model and looked at the running backs in his database with a 98th percentile score or better. It is Jahmyr Gibbs, Ezekiel Elliott, Jeremiyah Love, Bijan Robinson, Saquon, Christian McCaffrey, Ashton Genty, Leonard Fournette. I mean, those are the stars of fantasy over the last 8+ years, right? Like, these guys are so good. So yes, it could be frustrating. Yes, you might see some Tyler Algier. Yes, the Cardinals are going to be trailing a lot. But when we think about what this offense could be and what Jeremiyah Love's value is going to be in 2027 and beyond, I'm not worried whatsoever. I think an interesting comp of kind of like how this could go in year one, two running backs that shared similar situations as rookies. Bijan Robinson, obviously, with Tyler Algier, which is an interesting comp. Algier stole 186 carries that season. And we were all frustrated with Bijan. And it's like, man, when are they going to turn him loose? They were doing the whole Tyler Algier at the goal line type thing. I think that's possible. The other one that came to mind is 2017 in Carolina with Christian McCaffrey as a rookie. Jonathan Stewart, now that's a throwback, stole 198 carries. So if Tyler Algier at the end of the season, we look up and we're like, yep, he took 175 carries from Jeremiyah Love, I wouldn't be surprised by that. In fact, I think that's kind of the expectation. So for me, I think the ceiling is capped in year one, but this is a player that I feel very, very good about in the next 2 to 5 years will post multiple top 10, top 8 fantasy type seasons and potentially be one of those outlier difference makers. So yes, there is stink on the Cardinals. I think it's very fair. I think it's very warranted, but this player is so talented. The production profile was so good and the draft capital is basically the best you can get at running back.
Yeah, the Bijan one, it is obviously a fun comp with Algier there. He finished as RB9 that year, 12.8 fantasy points per game, 300 opportunities. It wasn't like blowing the doors off because he only had 4 rushing touchdowns. He did add 4 through the air. So if you got an RB9 season out of Jeremiyah Love this year. You should be ecstatic about that in terms of where the context of the team is, the quote-unquote crowded backfield. So I think the expectations just need to be like tempered of what you can get. But I do have a stat. Every single running back that was drafted in the top 10 of the NFL draft, you listed pretty much every single one. If you want to go back further, like Trent Richardson, Todd Gurley, like all of these guys that were top 10 picks may not have been very good for building your NFL team. All right, I think you and I would both agree, like, don't do that. But they all finished as an RB1 for fantasy as a rookie. So it could be that Love ends up like right outside this. Let's say he ends up as a top 15 running back. It's still really, really good. But the average amount of opportunities was almost 21 per game. Last year, we only saw 6 running backs average 21 plus opportunities per game. Even if he's a little below that, let's say that he ends up around 18 opportunities per game. That's what Bijan saw as a rookie. We need to realize that. And my last little point, all the teams you mentioned, teams that took running backs in the top 10, they were bad. Those were bad teams because they were building their teams in an interesting way. And then on top of that, it's like they were picking there because their team makeup overall was not great. The only team in this list that turned things around very quickly was Dallas when they took Ezekiel Elliott, because they also happened to get Dak Prescott in the 4th round and get really, really lucky. So the Cardinals will be a slow build. I think it's fine for you to be able to say that, but I'm just not panicking about the team situation and holding that against him in some way that's like, okay, well, I should punish myself for taking this running back because he's on a bad team.
Yeah, I also think, too, when you think back to rookie drafts, like nobody was debating the 101 this year, and it's because he was that talented and the draft capital was that elite with Jeremiyah Love. And obviously, when you do your rookie draft, 98% of Dynasty leagues, like it's after the NFL draft, you knew he was taking on the Cardinals. You know what the Cardinals are going to be this year. So just kind of understanding that. I'm not wavering at all, obviously. And so, yes, we kind of agree the ceiling is probably capped in year 1, but man, the future is very, very bright.
Yeah, just to dispel any fears you have about players, like go in the Ultimate Draft Kit, look at our projections. Like you can see on the player card, player profile, you can see a full video from Andy, Mike, and Jason, but there's a projection tab there. And for Jeremiyah Love, the consensus projection between our 3 guys is 229 rush attempts, which is fine. It's not super great, but 52 targets. So right there, you're seeing over 280 opportunities. Like that's very solid for any running back in the NFL and somebody that's in a crowded backfield. Over 1,400 combined yards and 9 total touchdowns. If you got those numbers, I know this is a projection, you would be very happy with him in your rookie drafts and in Dynasty. Now, redraft might be a different conversation depending on how high he goes. But right now, we have him projected as our running back 15. I think we're probably a little lower on 2026 than maybe some other people. But at the end of the day, like this feels like an easy top 15 running back that you should be excited about.
Yeah, for sure. I got nothing else to add. I'm with you.
Okay, cool. Let's take a quick break, and then we will jump right in. So Betz mentioned a little bit earlier that, we're doing a little bit of a different episode. A lot of times we'll go through player takes or we'll discuss different team environments. We wanted to make sure that people were able to look at their roster, whatever season they're in, and kind of identify like, this is the core parts of my team. Here's what I should do moving forward. So after all of our discussion, if you're like, hey, I still don't know, what to do, we will have an article on the website that's called 5 Questions to Consider for Your Team, Dynasty Roster Reviews. And then here's a big plug. Our Ballers Discord channels actually do this all the time. They have roster review nights where people actually get to submit their rosters. And then you have people kind of comb through everything about your team, your draft capital, your bench, everything else on your team, and be able to kind of articulate, hey, here's what you should do. Here's what you could do. Have you thought about trading this player? And you can go through that. So I really highly recommend our Discord channels. I'm looking right now at our Dynasty Superflex one, and I saw some questions in there today. So anything you want to say about the Discords before I hit the drop?
No, I just think it's a great place to go, especially if you're looking for a objective and non-biased take on your team. Because I know half the time when I look at my rosters, I'm trying to be objective and not have bias, but at the same time, I want to see each player's outlook through the best possible situation and what could be. But we have to understand that's obviously not the case. So yeah, always good to get the wisdom of the crowds, get some advice. Those are fun. Those roster reviews are good.
All right, let's jump in.
Dynasty Download.
So the way it's going to work is we have 5 questions for you to consider looking through your team. And Betz has submitted to me a roster of his in one of his Superflex Dynasty leagues that I'm not a part of. So I don't know the context of this league. He's submitting a roster. We're going to kind of talk through that one. And then at the end, we will go through some examples that the Foot Clan submitted. But the first question I'm going to ask, and you can kind of talk through it for your own team, Betz, and we'll discuss your roster, is you have to ask the question for your Dynasty team, what is the season of your team? Are you a contender, a rebuilder, or are you just playing clueless? Are you unsure? And that's okay. Like, it's better to say that you're unsure than identifying your team as a rebuilder or a contender and you're like the opposite. I almost put the word pretender, which would have been way better. The SEO would have hit
Kyle,
on that.
Come on, dude. Missed it.
I could be better. But you kind of got to understand the season of your team. And I'm just going to say right now, I really like the word seasonality.
Oh.
And this is like outside of football world. Like, what season of life are you in? Like, for us, like, we have young kids, and right now the season I'm in is called Summer of Baseball. Every single day, I'm pretty much messaging Betz and say, I'm at the baseball field. So you kind of have to understand what season you're in and understand that stuff. But like, your team, before looking at anything else, what would you say your team is at, and tell me why?
This team, I love this team.
Oh, okay.
This team is a defending champion.
What?
But come on, Kyle. We should probably tell people who's on this roster. But the reason I submitted this one for us to talk through is because it feels like it's been a playoff team for, I think, the last 3 years in a row. I'm coming off of a championship. And so I wanted to talk through it because it feels like I'm hanging on. And do I have like one more year left kind of as a true contender? Is it can I squeeze 2 years out of this thing? Or is it like, dude, if a couple things go wrong, like you could be too late past the selling window on some of these players. So that's why I want to talk through it, because it's easy to be like, this team is incredible, let's just keep doing this. But at the same time, I'm kind of self-scouting this team and being like, I'm not sure if I'm 1 year past the optimal window to potentially get some value. But again, coming off a championship last year, it was obviously a good season. Yeah,
so this 4-team league, man, congrats. I mean, that's big stuff.
6 teams, dude. Come on. Show some respect.
All right, so it looks like there's a Superflex league, start 2 running backs, start 3 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flex, and then I see Taxi Squad on here as well. So anything else you want to say about the format, scoring, anything else?
No, it's just standard half PPR, no tight end premium or anything like that, but Superflex and like you said, 3 wide receivers, which I think is fun. And the 2 flexes, I'm always a huge fan of those types of formats. It just gives you more starters to work with, more strategy. So yeah, otherwise pretty regular.
In 12 teams.
12 teams.
Okay. So we'll work through this team, because my second question, after you first guess what season you're in. So it seems like you're like, should I hang on for one more run here? Do I need to start rebuilding or thinking about some of those pieces? I think a lot of people are in that spot where it's like, I'm trying to figure out, like, do I want to go for it again? Who do I need to trade off? The second question I have is, who is the core of your team? Your 3 to 5 best players. If you can identify who those are, and then I have some questions from there that can kind of like identify, like, oh, hey, compared to the rest of your league, like, I think you're kind of behind here. So at quarterback, you have Josh Allen, and then your other quarterbacks are Jared Goff, Aaron Rodgers, and Jalen Milroe. That's a take there.
That's depth, baby.
At running back, it looks like you have CMC, RJ Harvey, David Montgomery, Jalen Warren, and then your backups have Jordan Mason, Jordan James, and James Conner. So the Jordans and the James, you got all those dudes together. Wide receiver seems to be the strength of your team, with Amon-Ra, Nico Collins, Devonta Smith, which I love as a wide receiver 3. And then it kind of drops off there. So that's interesting. We'll talk about some of those other guys. At tight end, you have Harold Fannin Jr., Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews, Hunter Henry. So you're at tight end, you're fine. So who would you say is like the core of your team?
Well, it's interesting because if you would have asked me that 2 years ago, Christian McCaffrey would like obviously be the name that you start with. As a contender or coming off of a win, I'm still considering him crucial to this team, obviously, if I want to repeat. So I would say right now, Josh Allen, obviously, Christian McCaffrey, Amon-Ra St. Brown as a foundational wide receiver, and then I would even include Nico in that range as well as a potential I know people don't view him that way, but I still think the talent is there if Stroud can kind of bounce back. So I would say like that group, Josh Allen, Christian McCaffrey, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Nico have been my mainstays for the last couple of years.
You also have Jordan Tyson, who is conveniently on your taxi squad just to show off to me, just to show me that you've got a stud there. So
that's right.
Other than that, your young guys, Antonio Williams, and then just some other shots in the dark here. And then at draft picks, you don't have a first round or a third round next year.
The first round pick, if I recall correctly, was in a Christian McCaffrey deal a few years back, if I recall correctly. But yes, that is currently one of the things I'm working through is like, are there veterans on this squad that it's time to try to get back that 2027 first? So we'll see.
So if you're working through who the core is of your team, your 3 to 5, it might be really easy for you to just say like, okay, well, this is what, I should do. There are websites out there that rank your teams. And I know in our Discord, people use different websites out there. There's one called Dynasty Daddy, League Terminals, another one. But before someone, I just want to give this advice, before someone tells you how you should rank your team, I think we should all figure out like in our gut, this is what I think about my team, because that actually carries a pretty heavy weight as you go about your team. So just think about that. Write down your 3 to 5 best players. But here's the questions I want to consider and ask you that I wrote in this article. If you are in a Superflex league, Betz, do you feel like you have 2 of the top 15 quarterbacks?
Obviously, Josh Allen. I think Goff is probably outside the top 15. I haven't looked at our rankings recently. And then obviously Rodgers is. I had a injury in season last year where I was like, I need another quarterback. I'm going to send a third for Rodgers. And I honestly thought last year was going to be my last year. So the fact that he was back, I was like, all right, sweet. Quarterback 3. So no, I don't think I have 2 top 15 quarterbacks.
Yeah, I was looking at Goff in our startup rankings. He's just outside of that. Now, I don't think you look at Goff as like, this is a weak part of my team. I think you would probably say overall, like, I'm fine with him as my QB2, but you're probably also looking at this roster in a Superflex and saying like, man, the bottom could fall out of this QB2, QB3 spot on my roster. And I would love to be able to find somebody in the next year or two to plug that hole.
For sure. And that's the tricky part with not having a 27 first next year, is that with it being a projected strong quarterback class, that's the scary proposition right now. But yeah, I mean, for me, Goff, like you said, I'm actually excited to have him as a quarterback too in Superflex, because he'll have those spike weeks, he'll have those quarterback 1 weeks. But if something should happen to him, like, I don't feel confident starting Aaron Rodgers obviously every week in Superflex. So the quarterback 2-3 combo here for me is a little dicey.
All right, so first you want to look at your quarterbacks and ask, do you have 2 of the top 15? We just did that. At running back, if I were to ask you in a Dynasty startup, do you have any top 10 running backs in a Dynasty startup? What would you say?
In a Dynasty startup, I think McCaffrey is now outside of that range. Obviously, in redraft, he's still being a first-round pick, so no, not in Dynasty.
Yeah, so like looking at Betz's team, and you could look at your own, and just looking at it from if I was building a team, I would not take Christian McCaffrey as a top 10 running back. However, you know what the window is for this player, and so you're treating this team and kind of asking the question as you're building your roster and figuring out the next year or two is like, what am I going to do with this guy? Because he feels like a ticking time bomb, but I also have a bomb in my hand that could literally like destroy my entire league. And you did that last year, right? Like, yeah. I mean, so you're kind of looking at that. Your other running backs on the roster, RJ Harvey, David Montgomery, Jaylen Warren. Talk to me about where you're at with that.
This team is super interesting because I've had McCaffrey on the team as well through some of the calf saga of recent seasons. In the season where that was developing, and it was like the week before the season started, remember when we got the news about Christian McCaffrey? I traded for Jordan Mason. So that's why Jordan Mason is on this squad as a former 49er. And then James Conner was on and kind of aged out. I missed the window to trade him. So like my depth at running back is not good. Montgomery and Warren are 2 guys that I feel like relative to consensus I've been higher on in general over the last 2 to 3 years. So they were guys I was able to scoop up for cheaper in trade value to get them as depth pieces, and then have been fortunate that Warren's run out has been pretty clean to have an actual path of, I would say, like flex value every week. And then Montgomery, those awesome RB2 seasons in Detroit. Again, kind of lucky to have him leave Detroit and get traded to a situation where we project him as the bell cow. And obviously you can talk through the age concerns there, but like the situation from a workload standpoint got better considering he was basically benched last year. And then RJ Harvey, to be truthful with you, was a guy I took in last year's late first round, but I wasn't even like excited about it. It was just like at the point of the draft where I was like, I guess I'm hopping on board the RJ Harvey train. And so, yeah, a fortunate run out for that situation based off of his touchdown count from the rookie season. He was a guy I was desperately trying to trade away actually throughout, February, March, April, and there were no takers in this league. Like, it's a pretty sharp league. It's some writers and other industry folks. Like, everybody kind of knew the efficiency stuff wasn't great. The touchdown rate is going to regress likely. They draft Jonah Coleman. It's like, okay, I guess at this point, I'm just riding it out with RJ Harvey, and maybe there's going to be a window where this changes, but right now he is penciled in as a potential RB3-ish type guy.
It's funny looking at rosters like this because that pick could have easily been Caleb Johnson in your rookie draft.
I think, if I recall correctly, I think he went one pick ahead.
Yeah. I mean, and that they were pretty much back-to-back in rookie draft. So, yeah, I think you've squeezed some good life out of that RJ Harvey pick and fortune on the run out. But I guess what I've noticed is that beyond 2027, CMC, RJ Harvey, Dave Montgomery, Jalen Warren.
It's scary.
It's scary. You could go from having 4 running backs to maybe having 1.5.
Yeah.
So
and that's why I think this team is like, it's such a crucial kind of point in the life of this team over the next 2 to 3 years to decide like, all right, 2027 doesn't matter. I'm in for this year and we're going for it, or like it's time to recoup some value.
Yeah. So my first 2 questions about quarterbacks and running backs. You have failed. You have failed miserably.
This team sucks.
All right, but the next 2 I think you're going to crush. So if you're looking at the core of your team and you're asking these questions about quarterbacks, running backs, at wide receiver, you just have to simply ask, do I have multiple wide receivers show up in the core of my team? And I mean like multiple high-end wide receivers. So if you list your 3 to 5 best players and you don't have 2, probably 3 wide receivers show up in that list, then your team is probably not built in a way that you want in Dynasty to truly, expand and really go. So looking at your team, you have Amon-Ra, you have Nico, you have Devonta Smith.
Jordan Tyson.
Yep. It's a lot. It's a good roster, dude. I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of jealous of that squad.
And this is like, you guys saw us do that Dynasty startup, and everybody made fun of me because I didn't draft running backs. Like, this is truly how I like to build my teams, is through these elite wide receivers. So yeah, that obviously makes sense of how I build teams. The other thing about this team that's funny is this is a Cooper Kupp team who's basically just there for the vibes at this point, but this was the guy that was on the team when he had the amazing season back in 2021, I believe it was. And just, I couldn't, again, a guy I couldn't flip. I'm like, I'm trying and I'm just stuck holding the bag. So he's on the squad. And then Wan'Dale Robinson is like a totally fine wide receiver 5/6, in my opinion, for Dynasty formats, especially in a 3 wide receiver league. Like, there were times I was starting Wan'Dale on a consistent basis last year.
Oh man, we never get to do this. I'm gonna have to stop one middle we're doing. We never ever get to do this in the middle of a Dynasty episode, but I gotta do it.
Breaking news.
The NFL has informed teams that it will not be holding a supplemental draft, meaning Texas Tech quarterback Brendan Sorsby will not be eligible to enter the NFL in 2026.
I'm really glad we committed about 25 minutes
last week
to talking through what to do in your rookie drafts, what to do in your fab budget. So does can he go back to college? How does this work?
He's probably going to be selling insurance.
I don't know. That's mean.
I mean, let's be honest. That's what the quarterbacks, they end up like working at the local car dealership in the city that they were at.
Jeez, man. That's crazy.
So we're reacting to this news live. We had a whole episode. I mean, I'm looking at the title of our Dynasty episode this past week, and it was called Talent or Opportunity, the Sorsby Situation. So that's really, really interesting. I do like that we gave the caveat of, on a talent level, here's where we're at. We're not buying that part. Yeah, it's like leagues are like, oh, okay, well, never mind. That doesn't matter at all.
Jeez, that's crazy. I don't know. We haven't seen, you guys probably know before we do, the reason for them just canceling the supplemental draft. But wild.
Okay, well, act like it never happened. None of this ever happened.
If you missed last week's episode, go back. Definitely fast forward.
Just go right through it. All right. So we were talking through your team, talking through the core of your team, and we got distracted because we're, recording in the middle of our workday, and this is what happened. So your team does have a lot of wide receivers, a lot of wide receiver firepower, and then it's nice to see Jordan Tyson in the group too of like, hey, I've got this over the next couple of years. So do you feel the temptation of, because you have this many wide receivers, that if you are going to go for it, you are tempted to trade one of your best assets to be able to level up somewhere else?
I don't think so, because I feel like this team could potentially still compete and be a top, I would say, 4 team in the league, even with the running backs that I have, because those wide receivers are so strong and because this team is like basically relying on Christian McCaffrey, right? Like if McCaffrey happens to go down, it's probably over. So I'm approaching it that way, where it's like, if I can turn one of these wide receivers into, I don't know, another RB2 type, long term, to me, that feels like a loss where I'd be like chasing a potential repeat in 2026. But at the same time, as I've already mentioned, this team feels very top heavy and somewhat fragile. And so I personally would not be trying to trade away any of these wide receivers because I think they're foundational pieces to a rebuild. Like I want Amon-Ra on the rebuild. I want Jordan Tyson on this rebuild if I happen to go that route. So for me, I probably would not be trying to do that.
All right, so you check the box for the wide receiver question. The other question about tight ends is, do you have a positional advantage? Do you feel that at the tight end position with Harold Fannin Jr.?
A positional advantage? Like when I think about that, I think of Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, maybe Colston Loveland, maybe Tyler Warren. I'm thrilled with the Harold Fannin.
You hit
outcome.
A home run in your rookie draft.
Right, and I think I got him at the early third in this rookie draft, where it's like, man, if what he did as a rookie, you get in the third, like, even if the rest of his year he kind of like fizzles out, you hit, right? Like, this is incredible. So it's 3 guys like I could see myself starting: Fannin, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, but I don't feel like I have an advantage.
I think that compared to the rest of your league, you are ahead because you got to use draft capital that you didn't really care about, a 3rd round pick, in a way that really helps your team. He's also one of the youngest tight ends in the league. Like looking at our Dynasty start rankings, it's Kenyon Sadiq, 21.3 years old, and then it's Harold Fannin as the next youngest tight end, and he's already played a year. So I think at the end of the day, like people feel like, man, I'm behind the ball at tight end because I don't have Bowers and McBride. I feel like if you have a core and you have a young piece that you feel excited about, that you can project for 23, 24% of the targets, that's pretty good. So wide receivers and tight end, I feel like you're really set. Quarterback, you have Josh Allen, so you could really almost win any single week. I think Jared Goff is fine. I think running backs is really the situation you're trying to figure out. Am I about to age out of this and kind of not be able to compete moving forward? Which leads me to my next question. Because I think everybody can identify the core of their team, their 3 to 5 best players, and you can compare them to our rankings if you want. I think what people are really asking is who on my team is going to level up this year or level up in the next couple of years. And by level up, I mean like, here was the expectation, and I think they could take it a step further. I think they can grow in their opportunity. I think there's room for them to gain value. But there's a big difference, I wrote this down, between I believe this player could level up and I need this player to level up for my team. And I find that a lot from rosters is like, I'm really hoping this player will level up when it's like, you're counting on this guy to be your wide receiver 3. And like for you, looking at your roster and looking at your wide receivers, it's like you could have said that a year or 2 ago about Xavier Legette, who is just barely holding on to your roster. But you're not counting on him at all. If he levels up, if he did this past year, sweet. You're playing with house money. You're not counting on him to be that player. But there probably were people the last couple of years looking at him, or you have Tank Dell on this team, where you're like, I need Tank Dell to take the step, and he gets hurt. I need Legette to be the wide receiver 1 before Tedero McMillan shows up, and he didn't do it. So, on your roster, who would you say you are hoping levels up?
I put down a couple of names here, and the one that I feel most convicted on, like I hope this happens, we talked through this player recently on a show, Isaiah Likely, where I was like, we've been waiting for the breakout, right? We've been waiting for the Mark Andrews to go away situation to happen, and it unfolded differently than we thought it would, but he is the starter and he's the projected leader of the tight end room in New York now, and so it's like, man, if what we've been waiting for actually comes to fruition, then I do think I have a huge advantage at tight end. if he doesn't and he kind of falls back into like every other tight end not named, the top 3 or 4 guys in the league, and he's just a replaceable asset on your squad, then I don't think I have that advantage. So he's a name that I put down. I put Isaac Tesla on here as well as a guy that, look, if he happens to level up, I'd be excited about that, because when I took him in a rookie draft, it wasn't like, okay, this guy is going to be on my team for a while and he's going to be a starter. It was like, the Lions know what they're doing. Brad Holmes is on a heat check. Like, let's just see what happens here. So for me, like those two would be key. The other name, though, that really is a big factor is Tank Dell, right? Because it's like, I had him the rookie year, and I was like, man, I've got Nico and Tank Dell. Like, I'm going to live forever. CJ Stroud's a rookie. This is great. These guys are incredible. And then, of course, the catastrophic injury happens, and nobody's trading for Tank Dell last year, so he sat on my roster, and, I looked at him every day, sad. But now I have a chance where it's like, hey, if he can regain any form, if he can level up to 80% of what he used to be, like, I'll have a flex type player on my roster that I literally wasn't counting on at all. And in that scenario, like, maybe it would make one of these ancillary or secondary wide receivers expendable in a trade to upgrade at running back. So, like, if those couple things can happen, I'll have better trade value for sure from guys like Isaiah Likely and Tank Dell, and potentially even Tesla.
Man, Mike and I were talking through Tank Dell earlier today because we saw a report. It's the first person we've seen report this, but they basically were projecting the roster for the Texans, a local person, and they had him on the cut list.
Oh, for real?
The hardest part is they were talking about he doesn't have a special teams role.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then they basically drafted his replacement in Jalen Noel, who I think is probably at this point just a younger, healthier player. So that was part of it, but we'll see. We're rooting for Tank Dell. I have him on a team too. Funny enough, I had Nico on that team as well.
It's funny how that works out. While we're talking Tank Dell, just for folks out there that kind of forget, like, his injury was one of those catastrophic type ones where it's like, if he can even come back and play in games again, that in and of itself is a win, in my opinion, from a medical perspective. So by no means am I counting on Tank Dell to become a wide receiver 2 in fantasy or something like that we had hoped maybe we could see after his rookie year. I think those outcomes are gone. If he can be a functional, complementary piece to the Texans offense, they and he should consider that a huge win based off how serious his knee injury was. So it's an uphill battle. And like you said, with the investments in last year's real NFL draft with Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, where they kind of just double tapped the wide receiver there, I think it tells us a lot about what they think about his potential future. So it's tough. I'm rooting for the guy, and obviously we love him, but it's a really serious injury.
Also, it's just the injury-prone label just needs to be thrown out the door for him, because both of his major injuries were friendly fire, from Dameon Pierce rolling up on his leg. Right.
Remember that.
And then Jared Wayne, random wide receiver,
come on,
that
Jared,
also took him out too. So his own teammates were the cause of both of his long injuries, which stinks. But if you are trying to find players on your team that you hope level up, like, you got to ask yourself some questions. You got to ask yourself, you got to, one, move from like, I just hope this and here's what I hope Isaac Tesla is, to actual counting fantasy numbers. And so, like, our projections for Tesla are not going to be very strong. Maybe Mike's look a little bullish because he wants it. But you got to ask yourself, what's the most likely outcome? What is the best case scenario for this player and their draft capital? And then looking at my team, do I need Isaac Tesla to come through for this team? Like, I don't think you need him.
No, certainly not.
Yeah. Or his role on your team is a second flex that I get to throw in there in plus matchups at home that I hope are going to be high scoring, and we hope he catches a touchdown. That's his role.
Right.
So I did get some responses from the Foot Clan of people that they're hoping level up this year for their squad. So I quickly found the ones that people were labeling the most, and I want you to kind of quickly react. You don't have to give a long analysis, but the most common answer was Rome Odunze.
I feel that. I think everybody feels that, right? It's like former top 10 NFL draft pick. We've seen flashes, and you can tell yourself excuses as to why it has or has not happened yet. But man, the love for Luther Burden and Colson Loveland is legit, and the love for Rome Odunze is kind of watered down.
Yeah. Marv?
I'm so tired of talking about Marv for the last 2 years, man. My genuine opinion, I don't think it's happening.
Oh, no.
I am so happy to be wrong about that. But it's like people kind of talk about Marv as if he hasn't had a chance. It's like this is an every down player who's always on the field. He has had all of the chances. And we used to talk about year 3 breakouts all the time, right?
Yeah.
It could happen.
Oh, it could totally happen. But if you're counting on Marv to be anything more than your wide receiver 3, I think that might be wishful thinking.
I agree with that. I just think tempering expectations as to what is the most likely situation to happen this year, to me, it's like, okay, cool. He was the wide receiver 26. Like, not dead on my roster, can start him. But like anybody hoping that what you were getting when he was a top 5 NFL draft pick, I don't think we're getting that.
Man, I took Marv ahead of neighbors in a league, and then it just slowly, my roster turned over where it goes, oh, I don't even need Marv. Like, I forget that Marv is on my roster sometimes. I think he's my 5.
So do the Cardinals.
I think so. Ernesto on X said, I have way too much stock in Travion Henderson for him to not become a stud. I need him to level up.
Yeah, people were very excited about Travion, me included. And I still think that player is there, but it's like, unfortunately, Ramondre was, I don't want to say so good, but good enough and outproduced expectations that he's not just going to go away, right? It's like Travion's going to have to level up to take over that lead role.
I've seen this answer a lot, and I think there's a really good one. Baishal Tootin is a name that I think a lot of people are hoping levels up. So let's say he is your RB2 this year. The ceiling, I think, case is like this guy could be like a top 12 running back this year if things break right. The floor is that he's in a committee and he can't be the guy, and you've counted on somebody to be your RB2. Like, this is one of those make or break moments for a player like that.
How are you? Do you have him anywhere in leagues?
I don't.
I have him in Dino Jr., and I took him in the 3rd round last year. And like I was hoping that last year he would be the right answer to the question we all asked all summer, who's going to be for the Jaguars? And of course it was Travis Etienne. I have considered putting him on the block and just seeing like how much excitement is there for this guy, because I wouldn't be surprised if he's the dude in the top 15 option. I wouldn't be shocked if it's a full-blown committee and he's like fine, but you're not winning your league because of him. You know what I mean? So he's a guy that I think is really fascinating in Dynasty.
I think that there's a moment with Baishal Tootin, if you're rebuilding, which your team is, correct, in that league?
Yes and no. I mean, it's. I would say yes.
He's not a must-hold to me. Like, if you're in the middle or you feel like you're, if you don't feel like you're a contender.
I would say I'm in the middle, but last year I really went for the rebuild, and so I feel like I'm like one more year away from coming back.
I feel like Tootin would be one of those guys a month into the season, his value skyrockets. People think that they have this, RB1, and then you're able to trade him for a first.
Or start of training camp. Crod is still not fully, in drills because he's coming off the foot. And the headline is going to be Baishal Tootin got the first carry with the ones, or, whatever it's going to be. I think this is the type of player that you can capitalize in the trade market because of the offseason hype and the training camp hype.
All right, a couple more players that people want to level up. This one's from Raymond Cameron III. He said, a pair of guys who get plenty of press, signed extensions, but I've rarely made my lineup outside of buys and injury issues is Christian Watson and Jalen Coker. This is a great response.
This is a good response. Yes, Christian Watson, I think he can level up. I know Mike thinks he can level up. I know you are praying he does not level up.
If he was my wide receiver,
love the victory lap this.
If he was my wide receiver 4, I'm happy for that. I think what we're counting on a lot of people is him to be a 2, like not even just like a fun 3 that you throw in your lineup and hope that you get a long bomb touchdown. Like I think people are assuming that he'll end up being a wide receiver 2 for your team.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate, at least based off like redraft hype with him. But there's a good chance if you have him, you've either ridden it out through the injuries and frustrations, or were able to get him on the cheap because of the injury frustrations, and so perhaps your depth is better, and he can be that kind of boom in your flex.
I think that's a really fun point that maybe we need to have an episode to talk about the strategy behind it. Of if you have a player, and we talk, let's say Christian Watson, you might hear somebody say like, "Oh, I'm in or out on Christian Watson," but the cost of what he was to your team is very different team to team in Dynasty, like you just said. Like,
for sure.
If you drafted Christian Watson or you traded for Christian Watson and you've gone through this kind of up and down, then it feels very different than the person that just got him on the cheap and is like, hey, I need him to be my wide receiver 5. This is awesome for my team. Like, it's just different. So when we talk about players, I always think about those things. Jalen Coker, though, like, this is an undrafted free agent. I'm assuming you haven't been counting on this player. But you got to be ecstatic that he got an extension. I mean, I'm sure you were showing that to everybody in your league.
I think he could have a top 36 fantasy season and be a guy that you're playing in your flex.
I'm down with that. Richie said Isaac Tesla and Trey Harris. I thought those were interesting names. He also said, but more realistic, Josh Downs. I think people are counting on Josh Downs to level up.
I think so too. The cost in trades has gone up. The startup cost has gone up. So yeah, I think people are hoping and counting on it to happen. I know I'm excited about what it could be, but we'll see.
All right, one more here. This one's from @FFHitman.
What a loser.
I know. Responded in, said, Mike said for his team, Pat Bryant, Isaac Tesla, and Kyle Williams.
Mike, got bad news for you, brother. One of those teams just traded a first for Jalen Waddle. We already talked about Tesla. And the other team traded for A.J. Brown. So good luck, buddy.
Which of those guys would you most want in Dynasty? Tesla?
That's tough. I think Pat Bryant could be maybe the heir apparent to Courtland Sutton, but like it's going to take a couple of years, you know?
All three of those guys were drafted in the third round of the 2025 NFL draft. And a year later, we're looking at all three of them like, I mean, sure. I mean, Tesla feels like free money. He feels like a fun lottery ticket. The other two feel like they've been passed on the depth chart, and it's hard to see a role. So I thought there could be a little glimmer for Kyle Williams to play in the slot, but maybe that doesn't really matter anymore. So let's take a quick break, and we'll move forward. All right, we're almost at the point of reviewing a couple more rosters, but just to recap, our 5 questions to consider. Number 1, what is the season of your team? Number 2, what is the core of your team? Number 3, who are you hoping levels up on your team this year? And the 4th question is, what are the needs of your team? And I just wrote these down really quickly. No matter who you are, you probably need more running backs. I think every single person would agree, and you talked about those 4 running backs on your team. Do you feel like you need to find another running back in your mix? You have McCaffrey, Harvey, Montgomery, and Jalen Warren as your top guys.
What I would like to do is potentially see what happens early in the season and capitalize on whatever that is. Like
some sucker in the league.
Just a bunch of suckers, man. If RJ Harvey has a hot start to the year, I would love to capitalize on that and flip him. If David Montgomery is getting 18 carries a game in the first month of the year, I would love to capitalize and flip him on that. So I don't know that I need more like depth of running backs. I think I need to try to figure out a way to manufacture a higher end RB2 if I really want to repeat in this league.
Yeah, and I if I was in this league, which imagine being in this league with you, I wouldn't.
You weren't invited.
I would basically say, you have all these wide receivers. I'm not giving you a running back unless you pay up at wide receiver. And I know that would be hard for you because that's the core, that's the identity of your team. And no matter what season you're in, you have 4 to 5 wide receivers that you're like, hey, I'm going to ride with these guys. But that's like the opportunity cost that I would present in front of a team like this of saying, hey, if you're trying to level up a running back, like I'm not just giving one away if you don't have a first round pick, which you don't. And I want your wide receivers.
Yeah.
It's a tough spot to be because you don't really want to just trade across positions just to make another position happen when you have young wide receivers that are going to hold value for another 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. So what you're saying, I should just hang tight and hope for the best? That's exactly what you should do in Dynasty.
If I had this team, I think I would hold tight and just say, Christian McCaffrey, let's say he just goes down. I want to ship with this guy, and that's good enough for me. And you have Josh Allen.
That's right.
So
if McCaffrey goes down, every running back on this roster is available.
Everybody.
Including Jordan James. You can have him too.
So if you're asking what are your needs, you probably need more running backs. You should probably count not by positions, like I have a wide receiver 2 or 3, but by targets, which is one of the things that I did for your team, Betz. I looked at our projections, and you have 4 guys in your team that projected for over 115 targets each.
That's
Amon-Ra, Nico, Devonta Smith, Wandale, which I think is a sneaky little bench play that you have if you want to flex him out. So counting by targets and target share is a better way than just saying this guy slots into my wide receiver 3 role. And then the last question you should probably ask about your needs is, what age window am I in? And we have an entire series on our website, the Dynasty Lifecycle series, where you can identify, hey, here's where David Montgomery is, age 29, changing teams. Houston Texans, super inefficient running the ball. They were the worst team historically run inside the 5 over the last 5 years. Sorry, brother.
Could you just not say that?
You know what it's going to end up being? Is it's going to be ugly and he's going to end up being the RB21 and you're probably going to be okay.
Yeah. He's like, it's kind of funny because in fantasy, you don't win your league because of these types of players. But it's like the type of guy that will help keep your team afloat. And then when the big spike weeks happen from Amon-Ra or Nico, it's like, okay, I got 10 from David Montgomery this week. That's fine. But yeah, he's not going to be a huge building block to teams this year. I think I won my league because I had David Montgomery. It's like, well, he's a fine depth piece. He's a fine RB2 or RB3, but you shouldn't expect more than that.
All right, and the last question I'll ask before we review some rosters is, what are your trade window assets? I also wrote another article last year. We did a whole episode about dynasty trade windows and the different times of the year of when your picks matter more, when they're more valuable. It seems like for you and your team, CMC and Montgomery are the two players that you have to make decisions on at certain points of the year. So the trade window right now is Dave Montgomery could grow in value, right? He scores a couple touchdowns early. The Texans win some games. I think they're favored in 6 of their first 7. That's a valuable piece. And if your team isn't competing, you will want to capitalize on it. This same thing with CMC. You can either write it out, or if he's hot early, you could trade him there. But those seems to be the two pieces that I identified.
The other one I wanted to ask your opinion about is Josh Allen. And obviously, if you're considering going for it, you would be stupid to trade him away. But like you said, if just in the first couple of weeks, for whatever reason, I'm 1-4 or 1-5 and things are kind of looking south, we've talked about this with Mike at times, where it's like these elite rushing quarterbacks, they do hit a point where they start to tail off a little. I'm not saying Josh Allen won't run the football this year or next year, but it's like, man, you could probably flip him for multiple 27 firsts and a younger quarterback or something like that, where it's like, man, if you are trying to just full rebuild this thing, I don't think that's the craziest idea in the world. I'm not advising people do that if they think they can win this year, clearly, but just he's another name that I was like, man, he's a little older than we realize, and it crossed my mind. So what are your thoughts on that?
I have Josh Allen in one of our leagues. It's a single quarterback, and my team was rebuilding, and I had so many people that basically looked at my team and told me because I was rebuilding, I should trade Josh Allen. And I just kept refusing because I was like, I don't care what season my team is in. I want the most valuable quarterback in fantasy, and I'm just going to say it. He's the greatest fantasy quarterback of all time. I want him on my team, and I don't think he's aged out to a point where I need to trade him. I think we're still 2 to 3 years away from that. So in a Superflex league, I just couldn't imagine trading him. I don't care how bad my team is. Your team, you could do a quick rebuild with a couple of these pieces, and you could be back a year from now. And I would want Josh Allen to be a part of that. So that, to me, it just people sometimes label their teams as rebuild, and then they look at their most valuable piece and say, I have to trade them. And it's like, I don't have to trade, JSN. I in a rebuild. I'm never going to trade JSN unless somebody overpays me or, some of these others. So apart from running back, I just don't really think about trading elite players if I'm rebuilding.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, if you have Bijan, I get it. If you want to trade Bijan, you feel like I don't, you could do that for certain. But, all right, let's move on and let's look at these rosters.
What would you do?
Ah, man, we never used that drop either, ever.
Wasn't there a TV show?
Oh,
what would you do?
I just want you to know that on my Stream Deck right in front of me, when I press the button, it is the "What would you do" 90s Nickelodeon logo.
No, that's not what I was thinking of. Isn't there a...
Yeah, there's a newer one, but I was thinking about one when I was a kid.
Yeah, they go...
Mark
it's
Summers.
A hidden camera, and they have people steal or something like that, and they just see if you would rat them out or whatever.
Yeah, but mine is nostalgic, brother.
Okay. Well, our minds went different directions, but
we did
still a good drop.
Yeah. I'm going to read the core of a roster, okay? So I get if you're listening to this, you're like, how am I going to keep up with this? I think what's helpful is us identifying a team as contender, rebuild, or unsure, and then just quickly us figuring out, based on their question, what they should do. So this one's from Joshua at MountainMan1689 on X. I mean, what a handle. It's a 12-team Superflex full PPR, and he says he's a contender, okay? His roster is, I would say, really, really good. Like when he said it's a contender, it seems like a good roster. His quarterbacks in a Superflex are Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. So love that.
Beautiful.
His running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs and Marion Hampton. I mean,
also very good.
His wide receivers are A.J. Brown, T. Higgins, Carnell Tate, and Christian Watson.
And Ricky Pearsall. I love that core.
Yeah. And then at tight end, he has Harold Fan, and he also has Travis Kelce. So overall, I think we would say this is a very strong team. You have 2 stud running backs. Like I'm very jealous of that running back core. But his question is, I want to upgrade at wide receiver, but do I need it? Should this squad get me deep in the playoffs? And maybe because we've never seen Carnell Tate, because we're kind of hoping Christian Watson, and because Ricky Pearsall is Ricky Pearsall, do you think he needs to upgrade at wide receiver?
I don't think so. I mean, I feel like if you're a contender, I think A.J. Brown is going to have a very, very good season this year with Drake May. Obviously, we talk about his potential window closing kind of soon, but like if this is your team and you're going for it, him and T. Higgins together are an awesome 1-2 punch. We just talked about Christian Watson and what he could do as kind of your wide receiver 3 or /4, excuse me. So I like those guys. As far as Carnell Tate, there is uncertainty, right? With any rookie, there's uncertainty. We thought Marv was going to be the guy. Turns out maybe not. Like Carnell Tate could have a good rookie year where you're still excited about him for next year and beyond, but not necessarily be a key piece to like a championship winning team in Dynasty. So the only thing I'd say is if you are like, I'm all in for this year, I think it's reasonable to say like, hey, maybe I could turn Carnell Tate into a more proven, for sure, top 25 type guy, top 24 type guy. But I'm not worried necessarily about Carnell Tate, obviously. So that's just the only thing is like if you wanted to just take out some of the risk and variance and take somebody else, flip them into somebody that we've seen produce for years, I think you could do it with the squad and it would make sense. But I'm excited about Carnell Tate's future. So obviously it'd be a bit of a risk management type question.
The makeup of these wide receivers, A.J. Brown, T. Higgins, Carnell Tate, Christian Watson, Ricky Pearsall. The one pushback I would give this team is you're in a full PPR league, but these aren't really like the traditional like players that see 150 targets. Like even, I mean, A.J. Brown could be the one in this group that could like see a monster amount, but he's always been more of a yardage guy, touchdown guy. T. Higgins, touchdown guy, yardage guy. Carnell Tate was not a PPR guy. We talked about him early in the Dynasty episodes of like, man, his targets per out run a little bit lower. Christian Watson, never been a huge volume guy. So that would be the only thing, like if I looked at the weakness of the team, it's like, yeah, you're kind of missing that traditional wide receiver where it's like, yeah, you know, you don't have an Amon-Ra where you could say, I'm going to see massive volume, or JSN or any of these guys. So it's a little bit different of like the makeup of the roster for a full PPR, but like overall, like I would not like trade essential assets to go after wide receiver.
I agree. When I was talking about with Carnell Tate, it's not like you should do this. It's just that you could do this if you wanted to try to get a more proven asset. But like, I'm excited about Carnell Tate, obviously. So I think your squad is very, very good.
All right, here's a rebuild team from Grant from X. It's a 10-team Superflex with tiered PPR and half tight end premium. Looking at the roster, he says, I'm moving from rebuild to contending, but I need help at quarterback. What should I do? So his quarterbacks in a 10-team Superflex are definitely lower than I would say the rest of the league. He has Tyler Shuck, CJ Stroud, Malik Willis, and Tua. So yes, you could probably mix and match that group, but I feel like you're behind the rest of the league. Like you're probably back in maybe the 9th or 10th best team when it comes to quarterbacks, but he does have some awesome pieces on his team at running back and wide receiver. He has Love, Hampton, and Scadaboo, which is incredible. And at wide receiver, he has Amon-Ra, Drake London, Jordan Tyson, another Christian Watson team. So should he figure out quarterback if it's Shuck, Stroud, Willis, and Tua? We're like, man, do you need to upgrade there?
So in 10-team leagues, obviously it's easier to compile a strong quarterback room. In a 12 or 14-team league, most people's QB2/QB3 are pretty weak. in 10-team leagues, I would say most people probably have, legit 2 options. I think with this group, you can see it, right? You could see it happening with Tyler Shuck, with Malik Willis if he runs enough, and perhaps Stroud can kind of just be, quarterback 15 in fantasy, something like that, where you'll have some usable weeks. But like other teams in this league obviously have a Jalen Hurts, they have a Josh Allen, they have a Jaden Daniels, and you don't have that oomph at quarterback. So I do think if this is a team that wants to try to upgrade there, that would make sense to me. The problem is he said he's not a contender, he's a rebuilder. And it's like, man, I want to keep Amon-Ra and Drake London and Jordan Tyson and Jeremiyah Love and Omarion Hampton. Like, I want to keep that for my rebuild. So I almost think I might just ride this out, kind of hope that Shuck can be the guy, that Willis has a nice fantasy floor here and address quarterback next year, because those pieces, I want those as a rebuilder. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because what you're going to end up having to do is to trade your most valuable pieces, one of those wide receivers, one of those running backs, to get a top 5 quarterback. And if you can't get one of those, then don't do it. Like, you're not just trading for the quarterback 10 in our startup rankings, which, I'm not trading for Trevor Lawrence if I'm giving up Drake London. Like, I want Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow, and most people don't love giving that up. So just the context of your league would say it's probably just better to ride it out. You do have some youth, I will say, at quarterback, like Shuck, Stroud, Willis. Like, they're young enough, and you kind of hope that maybe next year or down the road you get to do it. But if you know you're rebuilding, then you're playing with house money, trying to move forward in your league, and you have the core, right? Love, Hampton, Brown, London, Tyson. Like, I would love that core.
Yeah, for sure. That's great.
All right, let's do one more. This is a team from Quentin Smith on X. He says he's unsure. So I want to read the roster, and I want to see if we have the same reaction. If he feels like, hey, am I a contender? Am I a rebuilder? It's a 12-team, full PPR tight end premium league. And here's the core of his roster. So I'm not going to read you all of his bench. I think that doesn't matter. Based on this roster, Betz, in a 1-quarterback league, his quarterback is Drake May. His running backs are Jeremiyah Love and David Montgomery. I feel like those guys have showed up in every roster so far.
DeAndre Swift.
And DeAndre Swift, as is his other one. His wide receivers are CeeDee Lamb and Ladd McConkey, and his tight end is Tyler Warren. Where would you put this team?
This feels like a team that was just on the cusp of a rebuild, that in the last year, and is now on the right trajectory, that could make some noise in this league. So I wouldn't say rebuilder. I would say chance to contend if things break right.
I would put this as maybe a top 5 or 6 team in the league.
Yeah.
I know you don't know what you have with Jeremiyah Love. And for a lot of people, if you've been riding dirty at running back, then you're like, oh man, I've been so bad. I just assumed I'm rebuilding. And then all of a sudden you get injected with Jeremiyah Love, your team does. You're like, oh my gosh, I actually might be better than what I realize. And we say all the time, if you're a top 5 or 6-ish team, go for it. Don't just sit in this middle area where you feel like you can't. You have a difference-making quarterback. You have a difference-making tight end premium. You have CeeDee Lamb, who we would still call a cornerstone wide receiver. I think you really do need to figure out maybe some depth pieces at running back, because Montgomery and Swift will probably age out in a year or so. But I would go for it in 2026.
I would too.
Okay. If you need help with all of that, if you're like, hey, I don't know where I'm at, or I feel biased about my team, make sure you check out our Ballers Discord, ballersdiscord.com, and you can get reviews every single day. You can say, hey, here's my team. What do you guys think about it? And then someone can give you some unbiased thoughts about them instead of people in your league just bullying you, just telling you, you got to rebuild because you have Josh Allen.
They've been telling Kyle that for years, and he says, I will never rebuild. Although you did have, the second pick?
I've somehow in that league just stumbled into awesome players, like Luther Burden, somehow, Harold Fannin, just falling somehow into this kind of world, and Jordan Tyson. I mean, just good things. And Josh Allen's been there all along.
The Borgononi jabronis could not be more back.
Dude, what a great team. All right, that's going to do it for us, Betz. Sign us off.
Yes, fun episode today, breaking down some of these teams, answering dining questions, and now I know what I need to do to be a contender again in 2026. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. We'll catch you next week. See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. If you want to take your dynasty skills to the next level, check out thefantasyfootballers.com.